Good morning and good morning. Okay, today is Tuesday. We're almost out of the month. What have we been through beginning of September through today? What we gonna go through? We it may be something bad. It may be good. But today we are going to talk about bad. What do you do when bad things happen? Well, sometimes we learn the core of us. We learn, how we respond to things. And sometimes we respond well, sometimes we respond not so well. So I say good morning, good morning, good morning. I know I don't have on any earrings this morning, but that's okay. Don't even be concerned. I'm not. I just realized that I didn't have it on when I was looking at you. But anyway, it says, what happens when bad things happen to good people? We know a lot of us have been good a long time and bad things have still come. We can't avoid what's going to come at us. What we can do is learn how to react to it. I'll say that again. We can never avoid what is due to come our way. We couldn't avoid Sally. We couldn't avoid Ivan if you lived in this area. You couldn't avoid maybe a divorce. You couldn't avoid love. There's a lot of things we just cannot avoid. It's coming. It's coming. It's due us. And so we have to learn to understand what to do after something happens to us. What do we do? And it may be bad, but it may be good. It may be good. Our reaction certainly should be good. But today is a day that wasn't promised. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing. That's a fantastic thing. Um, I was thinking last night. I looked around at my commitment on getting myself together, and then I was looking at there is always disorder before there's order. And sometimes you may not be as orderly in taking stuff down, but the order needs to when you put it back together. And I just remember going through and watching people go through on TV the devastation of how Sally treated everybody in the area. Not everybody, but some people were treated extremely bad. In fact, I was talking with a gentleman yesterday that's going to do some work for me, and he was saying that his house had water, about a foot of water in his house. And he said every time it rains, like a torrential rain and a hurricane rain that we had with Sally, he said his house fills up. And he said he was telling his wife, we got to make a change. We have to make a change. So sometimes when bad things happen, that's when you make your best decisions on getting out of it and making sure that it doesn't happen again, or at least hopefully lessening the possibility. We just never know what happens to us when things come, but we have to be reactive in the right way so that we know what to do. And sometimes we get stuck. We get stuck. So I'm going to ask you this morning, are you stuck? Absolutely. Periodically, we're going to be stuck. We're going to be stuck about a whole bunch of things. That is the nature of life. We'll be stuck about so many things that we can't even count them. And in fact, sometimes we find that we're stuck underneath our being stuck. When I was, as I was saying, when I was pulling out all of this stuff and I'm going through it and deciding, give away, throw away this and that, it's almost like I was saying, wow, look how long you were stuck and didn't pay attention to it. And so my wish, my desire, my prayer to God is by the end of this year that I won't be stuck, that I will have gotten rid of so many things that I don't need, given away to so many people who do need and can use some of the stuff that I have. And, I just realized that the older I get, the less I want around me. And so I'm actually having fun with this too. And so here we go. Let's talk about when bad things happen to good people. I'm going to put on my glasses. Hold on one. Okay, it says when bad things happen to good people. It's by Lynn Melnick. It says, you can only hear you look like a hooker so many times before it becomes one. Spandex was a really big thing, it says. The year I stopped believing, I babysat for the rabbi's son, Isaac. There was luxe carpet in every room of the condo. Isaac liked Legos, and we made a pastor and a patriarch and lots of wives. In his car, in his garage, and the rabbi handed me a self-help book and put my hand on the crotch ready to go. I didn't read. I didn't care. I made good money. Isaac lived to 180 according to the Bible. Isaac is the only patriarch who didn't have concubines. Isaac is 30 now. Modern scholarship tells us the patriarch never existed. Experience taught me the patriarchs are all we've got. So this was an interesting poem to me, not because of what it said, but because of what it didn't say. It didn't say that even though there was a bad thing that happened to her, that she wasn't going to take what she knew she went there for, which was money. So sometimes we are in a position of realizing that trouble is there. Trouble is unwarranted. Trouble is unwanted. But it happens to us. And so, good morning, T. And so sometimes we don't even know what we're going in for. What we do know is what we come out with. And what we come out with sometimes it isn't a good thing. She only went in for the money, which was to watch this man's son. But really and truthfully, he had other alternatives. And sometimes we are fooled. We are fooled by the smile. We're fooled by, the kind words. We're fooled by the demeanor of dress. We're fooled by what they drive, what street address they're at. We're fooled. We're fooled. We're fooled by the job sometimes we just take, thinking that everything is all right, and only thing we have to do is stay there long enough to realize it's time to go. That would be a good decision. And so sometimes we just don't understand that bad things will happen. They're just going to happen. But we have to take the initiative to know what to do after the bad thing occurs. Now, yeah, this was extreme. And it's probably a shock value kind of poem that Lynn decided to write. It's a different kind of poem than I've ever read to you before. But it was just interesting because it was so different than, realizing that sometimes we may be in over our heads and we do not know it. We don't know it. We don't understand it until we're halfway into it. And then all of a sudden our eyes are open, our ears are open. So then we're seeing and hearing what probably gives us great anxiety. But then what we do with it after we got the message is the important thing. And so that's it. It's not only bad, but what do you do for yourself after something has addressed you badly? Like Sally. Sally addressed a lot of people bad. So that's our word this morning. That is our word this morning, bad. And if you know what bad is, just write bad in the thread. Bad. I know what bad is. Been around it, seen it, done it. Not so much to others, but it's happened to me where I've dealt with it and had to realize what's my next step. That's the way you have to look at life. But anyway, bad, it says, of poor quality, of low standard, and not such as to be hoped for or desired, unpleasant and unwelcome. So that's when things come to us. We're not expecting it. We have no idea it's on its way. But bam, next thing you know, excuse me, it appears. And what we do with it is what the next steps will be. But bad talks about something being unpleasant, something being disagreeable with you. It's unwelcome. Good morning, Deborah. It's unwelcome. Bad talks about being unfortunate, unfavorable. It says unlucky. I say sometimes it might be a blessing, maybe an unblessed when you first see it, to be blessed after it's over and you know what to do. But it says bad is also nasty. It could be a terrible thing, an awful thing, a dreadful, distressing, and a regretful kind of action that happens to you. And all of us can say that we've experienced bad. You know, it could be bad behavior, it could be bad money, it could be just bad. There's so many things that are bad. I mean, they just come to us. So, you know, when I break it down, I'm going to talk about the B. And the B of bad talks about besetting. And I just like that word. I just like the word. It says besetting. It says of a problem or of difficulty, trouble or threaten persistently. So a lot of times we may not even know that we've entered into an area of bad until it keeps coming at us and it keeps coming at us and it keeps coming at us, and we don't get above it. We don't get beyond it. We don't even realize how much it's dealing with us until we admit to it that it's a bad problem. It's a bad concern. But it says a besetting thing could be like a plague. Just it's there. Okay? It could be it says a bedevil, an attack, an assail. It could be belingered. It could be an afflict, a torment, a torture. It could be a rack of things coming at you. The oppress, the trouble, the worry, the bother, the harass, the hound. And it says the Harry and the dog. And I said the dog. Interesting. Because a lot of times they say if you get the dog on you, that means it's a bad thing, you know. So those are all the things that really talk about what besetting in badness is. Bad could be so much burden on us that we don't know what to do. That's another B. You know, it could just make us, it could make us extremely sad in the middle of whatever this bad thing is. Because a lot of times when bad things are happening, it's not pleasant. It is not a pleasant thing that we go through, but things do happen. So then we're going to move on to the A. The A of bad talks about adverse. And adverse is preventing success or development. It's harmful. It's unfavorable. And so when we look at things that are adverse to things that happen to us, we're almost in shock because we have a reaction. You know, we have a reaction to things that happen to us in our bad time. It may be that we cry. It may be that we get, you know, depressed. It may be that we lose ground in terms of accomplishing anything. We feel worthless. There's just some things that just go on when we are having this adverse reaction to what is taking place in our lives that is considered bad. And so it says it can be something that is unfavorable, disadvantaged. We've become disadvantaged by it. It says it can be unfortunate. It certainly is an unlucky thing. Sometimes bad things come at an untimely time. They just do. They just show up in the middle of, a big event. They just show up. I remember my brother. I'm gonna give you this real quick. My brother was my brother next to me. He's about 3.5 years older than me. He was interesting because he always sought out the bad thing going on. Always. I never understood his behavior. Even as a child, I just always said that I thought something wasn't right with him. It was true. But anyway, he would do things that just made no sense. And I remember he showed up at my wedding. He was invited, but he showed up at my wedding and he had on a long leather coat that went to the floor. And yeah, it was an October wedding, so, it was cold. It was much cooler than what, the weather is down here in the wintertime. And he had this long coat on, and he had half of it zipped around because the bottom zipped off so you could take off, New Yorkers. The bottom of it zipped off so you could, take it off and just wear the coat that went to the knees. Well, his went to the floor. So he took it off and let it drag as he was walking along as if he were a bride. And then at the wedding, so that's the first thing that was bad that was happening on my wedding day. The second thing he decided to do was go around and pop all the corks on the bottles of champagne on the table and start drinking out of them. Okay, we basically put my brother out of the reception. So, you just understand it. Sometimes bad it's not meant uh, for you to know, but it's meant for you to react. And just remember looking at my other family members, and they just escorted them out. But see, sometimes we don't know when things are going to go bad. I didn't even anticipate it. I just said, well, he'll come, he'll sit down, he'll get whatever he's going to drink later on and we'll be fine. No, he started at the wedding, and then he proceeded to carry on even more at the reception. So sometimes you don't know when things come up. That would be the untimeliness of bad. It says, but bad could also be disagreeable with you, unpleasant, poor, dreadful, dire, wretched. I always like that, wretched. Nasty, hostile, harmful. It says, and it can be extremely contrary. So we know, I think many of us can certainly attest to the fact that we've experienced an adverse reaction to something that was bad going on in our lives. If we've experienced, death may be one level that takes us down. And then I've had families that have worked through issues during the middle of the person having died. So it might be where they're dealing with the issue of, well, who gets Aunt Pearl's, necklace? And who gets the money? Who gets the house? Let's divide everything. Nope, we're not going to divide anything. So you never know when an adverse reaction comes to the initial thing. In this case, it was death, but it could be other things. Good morning, Claydine. So you never know when something is going to hit adversely on top of something that was already bad. You just have no idea. It might take you by surprise. I have a friend who said that basically their family fell apart completely with not talking to anybody after the death of a relative that had some money. Good morning, Mount Moriah, AME. They had no money, nothing. So in the essence, they decided that since I don't have the money, since I don't know where anything is, since I'm not in charge, since the family fell apart, to this day, and that's been 2 years, they're not speaking to each other. They're not speaking to each other. And the one that was in charge is said to have done something with money that basically put the other, siblings in a position where they got no money. So you never know what bad thing, which sometimes death is, it brings on something else. And the adverse reaction was, excuse me, where's mine? Where's mine? And that created something, so another fallout, so that 2 years later, nobody's talking. To me, that's sad. That would be a sad reaction. And the D of bad is for dreadful. Dreadful. It says causing or involving great suffering, fear, unhappiness, and extremely bad things going on. That's what dreadful is. And I don't know. I think I've been through a few dreadful things in my life which I considered bad. And if you live long enough, if you haven't gone through one, I say wonderful. Thank God for that. But many of us have probably gone through some things which once we get on the other side, we have to say thank God. We have to say thank you to somebody. Thank you. Thank you. Because they're tough. It says when we're dealing with something that's dreadful, it's more than just being terrible. It says it's frightful. You're absolutely horrified by it. There's grimness in it. There's an awful feeling. There's dire need. It's distressing. It's shocking. It's appalling. It's fearful, and it's tragic. So when we've gone through something like it's, just something so horrible, there's nothing else we can do but try to get through it. That's it. Get to the other side where you feel better, where you can smile more, where you have understanding, where you're at peace. To me, being in something that is bad keeps us hostage. It keeps us held down. It certainly would keep you on your knees if you're a person who prays, but it also, for a person that doesn't pray and doesn't have a higher power, it keeps them stationary right there, involved with whatever bad is. I think even now during this pandemic, how horrific it would be to be with somebody who has, threatened you, beat you, cursed you out, basically made your life miserable. That would be horrible. That would be absolutely horrible. But I know there's people like that. Having worked in as a counselor for years in domestic violence and, basically, looking at people who have gone through just trying times. And those were when, there was no pandemic going on at the time. So can you imagine if that was going on prior to pandemic and then pandemic hit? And then, the fact that to be in a position where you can't get out, a position where you're going and you're coming is restrictive. I can't imagine it. I can't imagine it. But I certainly, know that it exists. And so if you know of anybody in that situation, please, please, please help them by getting them to someone that, maybe put a restraining order or something that just gives them some peace, gives them a way out of that bad behavior that's going on. And bad behavior sometimes becomes, life-threatening. And so certainly if you know of somebody to do it, you don't have to be a counselor to take on the responsibility of just saying, I have to help this person the best way I can. And the best way I can is to report it, send somebody over there, do something. So here's the questions for today, hoping that you haven't had so many bad things that, that one, they can't be remembered. But I want you to, with a paper and pencil, is write down something that's happened to you that's bad. Something, because a lot of times we get on the other side of things and we forget what took place. We don't need to recall it and bring it up every day, but we certainly need to be mindful of how we got through it and therefore thankful that we got through it, and then know if it comes again, how to react to it. To me, that's planning. That's a good positive way of looking forward. And the second question is, have you been besetted with a problem? That means constantly bombarded, plagued with it, can't get over it. Just constantly one thing added to that thing, and it keeps adding, and more is added, and more is added. How do you deal with it? What's going on? And are you in that situation now? Certainly address it. Certainly address it. The next question says, what are some of the symptoms of an adverse reaction to something bad that's happening to you? What have some of your symptoms been when you've basically been in a bad situation and your reactions to it? What have they been? I know a lot of people have stories just about Sally, and what Sally has done, to them. Water in the house, no electricity for an extended period of time. Racial profiling is bad. Absolutely. 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 I think racial injustices across the board, not just the profiling, but even the passing over at jobs and just acting like you don't exist, walking in front of you, even the little things. I was in the store the other day, and it was actually in the post office, and they have the signs on the floor, the labels on the floor of distance. And the interesting thing is that not one, not two, but several people passed close by me without mask and never said excuse me. To me, that is in kindergarten 101. You're standing in a line, you go to the back of the line, you don't cross people, you always say please, you always say thank you, and you certainly say excuse me. We were taught that as young children, but I find that so many people don't use it anymore. It's almost like you become part of the background. You're not acknowledged. But yes, absolutely, Deborah, racial profiling is certainly bad and certainly, horrific, and we've gotten to see it, the results of it, which is death. So we have seen it, and quite scary. That now, if I ever saw that in person, I remember watching it on, George Floyd's death, watching him basically having his life taken. I just remembered startled. I just remembered, just so taken aback by it. I just couldn't believe it. But sometimes we realize that bad things happen. And, we're not the, good morning, Verla. We're not the authors of certainly the bad scripts we see. But that to me was the worst of a of basically a played out, killing on TV, and it makes me recall having at one time, teaching about Black history, and in teaching it showed where at one time that was basically a pastime where people bought food and they watched people get lynched, or they watched people get flogged in the streets, and have limbs cut off, and those things became, that's bad stuff, but they became the entertainment. And so just going through life, it just lets me know that not to be acknowledged is horrible. It is, you know, and to be acknowledged on your way out of this life as people see you losing your life would be absolutely horrible, and a horribly bad thing done publicly. Even privately, it would be just as bad. Don't get me wrong. But to do it publicly, that was a shock value for the world to see, and it showed our bones. It showed that we have not rid ourselves of that legacy in our country, which is to me very sad. That bad things can still happen, and they're almost endorsed for some people, not worried about for others, and not acknowledged for many. That's scary. That's very, very scary. But anyway, the last question on this whole issue of bad, addressing things that are bad, it says, what is or was the most dreadful event in your life? And I probably have had a couple. I think for me personally, death has been, the most dreadful. Just to see, like my parents, leave this world. That has been the toughest on me. And there were 10 children, and I think we're now down to only 3. So that meant 7 are gone. So I've been through this a lot, and so death. My reaction has obviously changed, because I know that as I get older, that eventually it will be me as well. But just looking at what death does, it just, for me, that's been my worst. And there's probably been other things too, but when bad things happen, what do you do on the other side of the bad thing? You live. You learn to deal with whatever that bad thing was, and you move on. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes the situation was so difficult it may take a long time to get over it. But the idea is that you're attempting to do it every day. You're attempting to work on it, chisel at it, pull down every single thing that bothers you about what bad was for you and to you. That once it's gone, you feel better. You feel better. But I thank you for coming today. I do. And tomorrow we'll come up with another certain topic to talk about, and hope you'll share on your for yourself. You don't have to share it here, but certainly share on your own timeline, your own journal, what your journey has been. I think today is my 109th session with you all. And if you're missing it here, you can always go to my YouTube channel, which is Sandra Winborn, PhD, on the YouTube channel, and it has all of them there. So you can, and each subject is really talked about and dealt with and presented, so you can certainly look at it. But yes, until you do, you live and you learn. If you really look at life, every day there's something we're going to learn about, and there's something we're going to live on with, or for. Because sometimes we live on knowing that there's things we can't change, but we live for the things that we can change, and that's what we certainly should acknowledge. But if you want to see, going back, if you want to see those other videos, you're welcome to go to that channel, sign up, and become a member or a team player in that area, so that you can certainly get these videos. And every time I post one, it'll always come to that a new one has been posted. But I think I looked last week and I had 4 more, so I'm excited. So maybe eventually I'll have 104 and 204, so forth and so on. We're just going to be praying it up that something will come this way. I want you to have a great day. Thank you, Miss Rosie, for coming. I know you're running late when I see you, but I always love to see you. I always know that you go back and listen, and you always share. And if you all can share, that would certainly be wonderful. Have a pleasant day. Be safe. When you go out, please cover up your face, your hands if you have to. Keep your distance. Wash your hands when you come in. Throw your clothes in your washing machines, and get ready for just taking care of yourself. Okay? Love you, love you, love you. See you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.